There are many times when you'll need to paint or create photographic textures for your objects, and in that case, we'll want to use bitmaps. So let's take a look at how to apply bitmaps to textures. So I'm going to select this NURBS plane. Now the reason I'm using NURBS is because the mapping is already baked in and it makes it easy to apply materials and textures. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a material. So it doesn't really matter what type of material. I'm just going to use a Lambert, which doesn't have any shininess to it. And then I'm going to go into my attribute editor and go down to my color tab. So when I dial in my color attribute, you can see that it's affecting it. But I want to input a texture into this, and specifically a bitmap texture. So I'm going to click on this little checker here. And we're going to go into Create Render Node, and we're looking for File. So go ahead and left click on File, and it should bring you into this node called File 1. Now this node allows me to input an image. So if I click on this little folder, I should be able to go to my Source Images folder, and I should have one called Wood. And basically it's a wood floor with just a little bit added so we can see the tiling of the texture. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Wood. And then if we want to take a look at how it applies to the object, we need to make sure we have hardware texturing turned on. So now this image is applied in a one-to-one manner to this NURBS plane. Now in this file node, we have a bunch of different options here, and probably the most important one is color balance. Now we have color balance and effects. So let's take a look at how to change the color balance of this. We have exposure, which will brighten or darken that bitmap. We also have color gain, which will basically just darken it. We have color offset, which brings up the lowest value. So you can almost think of that as like levels in Photoshop. And then if it has an alpha channel, we also have alpha gain and alpha offset. Now in effects, one of the most important one is invert. So if you want, you can flip that around. And this is really important if you bring in something like a transparency map and you need to flip white and black or something like that. Now in addition to this, we also have a place 2D texture node. So this is how this particular bitmap is placed within the material. So if I go over to this Place 2D Texture node, you'll see that we have a number of ways to place this bitmap. So we have coverage. So if I type in, say, 0.5 and 0.5, then it will shrink down this particular bitmap and only cover a half or quarter of this particular map. So if we bring that up to 1, it fully fills it. Now, if we bring it above, what happens is that it oversizes it. This is not tiling. This is the size of the bitmap in relation to this frame. Okay, so that's really important. So typically you want to keep this at 1. Now we also have translate frame. So how is this bitmap adjusted within that frame? So if I bring it up to 0.5, this should move a little bit to the right. And if I bring it up to 0.5, it'll move it up and down. Now these again are UV coordinates. I'm going to put these back to 0. And then we also have rotate. So if you brought it in and it's rotated the wrong way, you can always rotate it 90 degrees or really whatever you want. Now along the bottom here, we have our repeats. Now these are different than the coverage. Now coverage is within the frame, and this is how many times that particular frame repeats. So if I say type in 3 and 3, we get a 3 by 3 coverage. And this is a great way to expand or contract your texture to match the scale of your scene. We can also do offset, and we can also do rotate. Now this rotates the UV coordinates. Okay, so if I do rotate frame, it's rotating around a different coordinate here. So this is rotating around this one, and this one's rotating around this one. So they are a little bit different. And then if we want, we could add in noise. So if I put in, say, 1 and 1, you're getting a very noisy texture, and that's typically not something that we'll want to do. So let's go ahead and make sure those are 0. Now to navigate this, again, we can use the up and down arrows. So if I use the arrow to go to output connection, it brings us up to the file node. And then if I go up one more, it brings us up to our material. So when you use textures in Maya, you can bring the files in a number of different formats. And then once the image is in, you can affect the color as well as affect the tiling and mapping of the image to the material.